Hi guys, this is Bill from Spencer1984.com with a new project on the bench, the Little Red Corvette. Now, before I get into the new build, I wanted to share this one with you because, like many model builders, I started out with kits that had been gifted to me from friends and family, and then I started getting into the hobby, so I started looking for kits that I could purchase myself. And at the time, the Chevy C4 Corvette was the hot car on the road, and so I had wanted to build a model of that. And I was looking at swap meets and car shows and ran across the MPC 3-pack that had my 85, 75, and the 57 here. And so the 85, that was built up, made way too many modifications to it, decals everywhere. It wasn't pretty, but it was fun. The 75, that was a disaster. I never even finished that because I just tried to go way above what I could do at the time with custom work. And then there was this one. This is almost entirely box stock. I did add a few little details to it. It was after I had started adding ignition wires to kits, open up the grill, things like that. But I still was not very good at building yet. A few weeks ago, I had noticed that one of the bumpers had fallen off the back of this, and so I pulled it out, made the repair, and was just kind of looking it all over and decided I wanted to revisit the build. Some of you may remember that I did a similar with the Riptide Corvette a few years ago, but so taking a look at this one, it does have removable roof. Talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, as I was looking at it, I was noticing things like I never took the ejection marks off the seats. Got a run in the paint right there. Uh, yeah, the hood does open. I actually kept that functional, and you can see my early efforts at wiring up the engine. But I also overglued it. You can see a dent right there, and got a couple more of those. But it's a neat kit. It's got working steering here. It's actually got one of the better detailed chassis of the C1 Corvette. Uh, but as you can see here, I didn't do a terribly neat job with it. So I went and checked eBay, and to my surprise, I was actually able to find the same kit that I had bought all those years ago. And not going to get too crazy here, but I really do like this old box art that they had. The very over airbrushed 87, 75 back there, and 57 here. And just kind of neat looking with the reflective surfaces. This kit does actually include some tools and paint. And just taking a quick look down the side of it, they give you some close-up shots of the different cars. Engine, wheel, interior. If you're old enough, you remember the golden wheels the MPC kits always came with. And take a look at the other side of it. This is one of the kits that was released under the Fundimensions banner that MPC was using for a while. Another profile of the 85, 75, and 57 here. And taking a look at one of the other fun things they included in it is a modeling tips guide for beginners. So just kind of a quick introduction, shows off what comes in the kit. And yes, all of these are actually included with this release. So you've got a couple of rubber bands, and surprisingly enough, they do still have some life in them. You get an emery board, which very much does not have any life left in it anymore. You've got a couple of long-handled paintbrushes still in their bag, and they're still soft. Might actually be able to use those. And they give you 6 pots of basic colors here. And most surprisingly, opened them up, and they're actually still liquid. So, 30 some odd years later, and you can still use the paint there. So hey, go MPC. So taking a look at what else they tell you to use. Paint, scissors, tweezers, tape. Tell you how to prepare the parts. Tell you how to do some basic painting. Tell you how to tape it off to put some stripes on your car. Tell you how to do a little bit of weathering on it. And how to apply the decals. So yeah, it's actually kind of a fun little addition that they've included in this kit. Alright, and onto the kit itself. So, yeah, as with most MPC, the proportions look pretty decent, but it also has a fair amount that needs to be cleaned up, like the flash marks and parting seams here. Uh, Seams are not very deep. Those will have to be recut and darkened so that they look okay. Fair bit of cleanup, but really not too bad. We've got some engine and suspension parts here. The block looks pretty good, as they usually do. The springs and exhaust, not so much. You can see that there's a fair amount of flash on those that need to be cleaned up. Chassis, same thing. A lot of flash here, but detail-wise, not too bad. Got the engine bay. It's got molded in details, but generally looks pretty good. And most of the wheels. Got more suspension components, more flash to clean up, and part of the exhaust pipe. We've got the hood, valance, and one of the roofs. Now, on mine, I did not glue down the hardtop because you also get a convertible soft top option. And yeah, it's a little rough where it was molded, but could be used. We've got some more engine components here, and we've got, unfortunately, broken steering wheel. That did not survive the last 3 decades, so I'm going to have to do something different with that. We've got some of the parts that have fallen off the tree, the roll bar, dashboard, and other valance. We've got a few more parts, the optional steering wheel that I might use, along with the wheels, intake manifold. We've got the interior bucket here, and you can see it's got the giant ejector marks right there, right in the seat pattern. So I'm going to have to figure out something better to do with that than what I did last time. We've got pretty good sized chrome tree here. Yeah, the only thing I don't really care for is this filled-in grille. I opened that up on the old one. I'll do that again. But it's got a nice separate windshield frame, gauge cluster, engine dress-up kit, the dual air cleaners, and I really like the way that they did the hubcaps. They did them as 2 separate parts. I think this is the only kit that does it, where it's got the separate spinners here to go onto the cap itself. We've got clear tree, and I am missing one headlight, so I'll have to replace that. And the windshield's a little bit scuffed up, but that should polish out with no problem. And then the last thing is 2 sets of taillights. We've got the spear style as well as the round dot style. So there we go. Now, as far as why I'm using a 57 Corvette instead of something a bit more contemporary for the song, aside from why not a 57, when the song came out in 1983, it was kind of the tail end of the malaise era for cars in the United States. And if you wanted a cool ride, you had to go with 2 options. One was European, and the other was classic American, usually a 50s car. Yeah, think of movies or TV shows at the time like Elvira, Weird Science, Night of the Comet, Heavy Metal. In all of those, the cool character was driving a classic American iron and usually had 1 or 2 minor details changed to it, but was still recognizable as the classic it was. Now, you could even consider movies like Karate Kid and Ghostbusters as 50s cars with an 80s aesthetic on them. So that seemed really appropriate for this. As far as modifications that I'm going to make, aside from using the alternate steering wheel since the stock one is busted, I'm thinking about putting some wire wheels on it and just going with otherwise a clean, straight 57 in bright red, inside and out. So there's the project. I will have an update on it next week, so check back then, and thanks for watching.